Hello and welcome. On June the 11th this year, an Indian priest took over as the chief content editor of Radio Veritas Asia, a pan-Asian radio service of the Catholic Bishops of Asia. A day later, the O Heraldo headline read, "Made in Goa priest to generate content for Asian Catholic airwaves." Father Feroz Fernandez of the Order of St. Francis Xavier from Pilar is indeed made in Goa. He's a Divarkar who has travelled the length and breadth of this country and a few other continents besides, and today he's kindly consented to be with us on the show. Instead of giving you a long introduction, let's get his story directly from him. Father, thank you so much for being with us in the studio. It's probably one of the few live presentations that you've had in a while. So thank you for consenting, because I know these are days when everybody is being extra cautious.
Thank you, Runa. This is a lovely time. Like I said, CCR TV is really doing great work in Goa to connect to the audience. And I said, I'm an audience person, I'm a people person. So it's a good time. Thank you for this time.
Great. Okay, so to kick off, tell us about Radio Veritas Asia. What is its mandate? What is its mode of operation?
Yeah, it's a very fascinating term. When I first heard it, I thought it is radio. Radio Veritas Asia. Radio because they were promoting broadcasting through the radio. And Veritas, it's a Latin word for truth. And because it is in Asia, so it is pan-Asian countries. So,
right.
So basically, it's a brand. Today we have this legacy of Radio Veritas Asia, but it has changed gears from shortwave to online media.
Okay.
So Radio Veritas has a very defined mandate to communicate to people, basically,
okay.
And communicate as it Veritas, communicate truth.
The truth.
And this message is so much relevant today because there's so much of misinformation and fake news,
yeah.
And to verify those things, and the veracity of news today is being questioned, challenged, doubted, and Radio Veritas' mandate today is much more challenging. There's an opportunity to connect and the same message to the people in local languages. So one of the speciality of Radio Veritas is to communicate to people in their own local language. So we have these different stations, or today we still call them, we are still taking time to make this transition. We still call them broadcasting stations, program directors, producers, but they are making this transition from the shortwave to online media, and they are still connecting to people in their own language in each of these countries in Asia. So they are keeping this language service alive. By keeping the language service alive, Radio Veritas also keeps the culture alive. It's a point
right.
of learning.
True.
So this is the mandate, and obviously it is a church-based organization. So as a church-based organization, it proclaims Christ, it proclaims good values, it proclaims human interest stories. So this is all of us that do. We try to keep away from political angle, but still there's so much good things to be shared, learned, and communicate through this medium.
Okay. You've been appointed Chief Content Editor at RVA. What does that entail? What is your role?
This is in the making. This is the first time RVA has a Chief Content Editor to oversee all these language services. We have 21 language services and 22 with English. They have shifted in 2018 they've stopped all the radio stations and shifted on to online media. So the Chief Content Editor is the first time they created this post to oversee and connect all of them. Otherwise, most of them were autonomous, and they used to produce content in their own language like Hindi, Tamil, Bengali, and Telugu in India, and other countries in Myanmar and Indonesia and other parts like Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, Philippines had a service, they stopped it. So
okay.
All these things, they want to bring it under one umbrella organization, Radio
okay.
Veritas. They had the brand, they had the same funding, they had the same mandate, but now we want to collaborate, pull resources together, and see how best we can be effective.
So is my understanding correct that when you're looking at pulling these together, these are content generation entities that already exist, that you are now networking together.
Yes.
Okay, that explains it, because otherwise I was going to ask you, why not just do a couple of languages and do subtitling?
Yeah, I know. Subtitling. Yesterday I was with the Hmong service in Thailand. I was doing a persona workshop with them, and then this is one of the things that came up. They put up these titles in their local language, Hmong, and they were suggested, they said, why don't you put something in English so that it becomes easier for people to search? So these two things are going simultaneously. Some people are typing in their own language, and some people are typing in English to search their own language. So that was an interesting data that I saw yesterday, and there's a good suggestion. So basically, these language services that exist, that subtitling, people still want their own language. Like people in China, they type in Mandarin. People in Japan, they type in their own language. Even their emails sometimes, they come in their own script. It was very interesting for me to learn all these things. I'm still getting familiarized with these dynamics of each of these languages, and it's beautiful because some of these languages, they are consumed. People are learning, and yesterday I looked at their statistics, and one of the things that they were quite watched was teaching language. Teaching the language. Language learning. People were coming to learn language, their own language. So it is not just churchy.
Right.
So they have culture, they have teaching language sessions, music, songs. So it is a composite of things, very, very less probably political angle, but all other things are being covered.
Quite like what we have at CCR TV.
Yeah, very much same.
Sounds like, it becomes a composite of general interest as well. So when you say you stay away from political, now you've talked a little bit about language, but what other kind of content does the channel broadcast? Say, you said not only churchy, but in the context of religion, I'm assuming since it comes from the church or has the blessing of the church, then what kind of content is the mainstay of the channel?
See, the Radio Veritas has a mandate of 8 categories, and of the 8 categories there will be daily reflections, scripture reflection, readings of the day, then human interest stories, UN days and saints, and then certain things, masses, live stream, rosaries, devotions. Apart from all these things, there are stories of human interest. There are stories that that will benefit others, how you can empower others. So these stories like women empowerment, children helping youth. So these are all our stories, how we can make somebody's life better.
Okay.
So it is just not just telling you about Jesus Christ. So it is definitely telling you the goodness that has been proclaimed. That's the reason why we exist. And but apart from that has a lots of other things to be told. And when bishops and other priests and Christians engage with other religion, like inter-religious dialogue, send them greetings on their feast days. So those are those stories also we communicate, building bonds with other communities, with other denominations, like Catholic and Christians, and Catholics and Buddhists in some parts in Asia, Catholics and the other different types of people. So it is a broad variety, but there is a focus.
Okay. Now 22 languages, 21 plus an umbrella language. How do you plan to manage this across Asia?
It is we have a whole big setup of the office. Each of these language services are independent, they are autonomous, they have their setups, they are connected to the main office. There is an office above me, so I am on the editorial division. There's an IT department and there's the program department and above the general manager, so that's how this hierarchy works. So there are a lot of people doing lots of things to streamline these services as part of their transition. So I have a definite mandate to create content which will be used by them, to pick up content that will be used on an English website, to make sure create a profile, what is your typical audience in your language service and what is their demand and are we serving their need.
Okay.
which is in line with us. So I am looking at planning, strategic planning, you call it, creation of content, monitoring, evaluating, handling controversy. So, navigating political scenarios, that
As
is
well.
like, that's like constantly updating people. And with this COVID, like, people are working from home, there's lots of dissonance. Keep them motivated. Like, all these part is part of my job.
Right.
So it's a vast,
Big job. It's a
yeah.
big job. So, who does RVA roll up into, or who oversees RVA?
See, RVA started on its own, like it's a group of like how CCR TV started, probably like and then the Federation of Asian RVA started in 1968, 69, and then the Federation of Asian Bishops Conference,
Okay.
they took over RVA and allowed RVA to flourish all the more.
Okay.
Because through that, the Federation of Asian Bishops Conference, I'll tell you what is Federation of Bishops
Please,
Conference. Allowed RVA to boost their own mission, and it got much more authenticity because the bishops carried this entire venture. So, what is Federation of Asian Bishops Conference? Like many people know that as FABC. So it's an umbrella organization
Okay.
for all the bishops' conferences in Asia. So
Okay.
what does it mean? Like we have so many bishops here, right? In India, just
Yes.
look at in India. Like
Yes.
Goa, we have Archdiocese of Goa. So Archdiocese of Goa plus the Archdiocese of Mumbai, the Diocese of Sindhudurg here, the diocese, neighboring dioceses from Karnataka. All these dioceses of India, they come under a bishops' conference.
Okay.
Catholic Bishops Conference of India or Conference of Catholic Bishops of India. These conferences from different countries are under the FABC.
Okay.
So each country would have a bishops conference or a designated member. Sometimes they don't have enough bishops to have a big conference, so
Okay.
they will also have a representation, and that representation will be seen into our into FBA, this
FABC.
FABC, Federation of
Okay.
Asian Bishops Conference.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So that ensures then that you have input on what kind of content you need in each region, because that was going to be another question that
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you from something you said. How do you ensure that every region's needs, because each region is different, dynamically people, requirements or development, all of those things differ from region to region
Yeah.
within Asia itself. So how do you ensure that you have the right kind of content to cater to each of those?
There are a few benchmarks that are kept, and I definitely have these benchmarks, which makes it easier. First you have the teaching authority of the church,
Okay.
the teaching of the church. So you'll adhere to that line, first
Okay.
thing. Then you will have the bishops giving a statement on a particular issue. So bishop has taken another type of statement, not
Okay.
contradictory. So in a particular country, a bishop conference would give a statement, saying this is what we are doing, and you are welcome to do this. So we will tailor our content based on
Okay.
that. For example, the CCBI gave a statement on Grandparents' Day, first grandparents and day for grandparents and elderly. So there is already a document from the bishops of India saying these are the suggestions that you can implement into your parishes, into your home, into your life. And so we have a
So that gives
tailor-made
direction.
direction. There are areas that are gray, as you know. There are areas that are controversial, they are sensitive, and that is where my discretion comes in. So
Yeah.
I have if Pope has said something, I am following that, right? If the
Right.
bishops are saying something, we are following that. All of them are following that. But there are issues that can affect us. So, and it may affect us ethically, morally, or legally. So those are the issues that is the area that I am navigating.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, before we move further in time, I'd like to go back in time a little bit. I'd like to delve into some personal aspects. Okay. So tell us about yourself. What has been your journey that's led you to this point?
See, it's a fantastic question. I really love this question because Most people think that if you grow up in a village school, then nothing can happen. Like, no. I studied in Diwar. I enjoyed my companionship. Like, my teachers remember me as one of the naughtiest kids. So basically, I was out of school most of the time, out of classroom. Like, so what is the thing? This is a journey, is a calling. I saw my journey as a call, that God has called me, and I answered that call, and that call has fascinatingly taken me everywhere. I don't have a plan. Even today, you ask me what will happen after 3 years, I don't know. But something is going to happen, that is I'm sure. Something, I don't know, I don't want to put qualities like nice in it, but something is going to happen. The way I look at it very spiritually, I said, in Western thought, one of the advantages of being a priest, like you study lots of philosophies, like Western philosophy, Indian philosophy. I'm so much Indian in that way, and I said made in Goa, but there's so much Indian by soul. Why? Because Western thought, we make this powerful statement: I have reached Mumbai. Like Mumbai, because I worked in Mumbai, that's why Mumbai is. So I reached Mumbai. We have a goal to reach Mumbai, and then we go there and we take all the measures, we reach Mumbai. But you listen to it, the same thing in Marathi. They say Mumbai Ali. Means in English, Bombay has come. That's why, maybe we may not say like passive and not correct, like, but Bombay has come. Means what? You are static, things come into your life. So my personal journey and personal testimony in this, things have come into my life. Priesthood came into my life. I have no choice except to say yes. The moment I say no, things go wrong. So then I whatever came, Varudin East, as I was the editor of the News Weekly in Goa, I loved to be there, part of it. It came to me, they just offered me that job, where people are like struggling to be an editor, and I did not have journalism in the background. I never wrote Konkani, and definitely I hate news, and I still do that. But I love reading, I love exploring, I like adventure, I love technology, I like to connect with people, I love work. So these balanced it. So these things come to me. So even in the US, the society requested me to go for studies. I never asked for US. Canada came to me. I told the people in Canada, how did you come to Canada? From Chicago. Nobody moves to a northern part in Canada. But that was a calling. You move from Chicago city to a small place in Pitts River, it's like minus 40. Of course, Chicago is also pretty cold. But that it comes to you. Radio Veritas, Asia. I never planned for it. I'm never prepared for it. I want this. It just comes to you. And that is why I want to tell my readers and viewers, things come to us. Don't plan everything. Keep something for God to surprise you.
It's interesting actually, because you're right. I think we spend so much of our lives planning our goals, not realizing that reaching somewhere actually is just the opening of the door. And exactly like you said, Mumbai Ali.
Yeah.
The way the statement is phrased essentially is an open door.
Yeah.
Instead of the way we see it as done, I have reached here.
Yeah, that's why I like language. That's why I love Konkani. That's why I love Marathi. That's why I love Hindi. Because when you hear the native speaker speak, frame sentences which have not yet reached the textbooks, you see the original philosophy. So that is what I look forward to do with these languages.
So it looks like it's a match made in heaven for you.
I think so.
Father, now the citation said, Father Fernandes has shown maturity, competence and commitment in carrying out his various responsibilities. We are confident that he will be able to devote himself wholeheartedly to carry out the mission of RVA, particularly in the early years of its transition from shortwave to digital online service. Now you said you don't prepare, you never asked for it. How did you get hired for the job?
Yeah, that's things happen sometimes. They just come. I can give you facts and data, but if I don't put the aspect of spirituality behind it, these intensity of the calling. I'll tell you, all these facts are just facts. Because I had an alternative to go to another European country.
Okay.
And I put it down, and people were thinking that I was crazy. They told me, we
Asia
want
over
you.
Europe?
I'm from North America to Europe.
Okay.
So that was the closest posting that I was getting. And then I had to really put myself into it. What is trying to knock you down? Choose that one.
Oh.
Yeah. So I felt Asia was fascinating. It has the most populous, most diverse as global Asians today, and lots of opportunity, lots of challenges in Asia. The other option would make my life comfortable. But simple logic for me, more the challenge, I take the job. Less I know about the job, better it is.
So what are some of those challenges, apart from the navigation, like you told us?
See, the challenges today for Radio Veritas is very interesting, is to make ourselves relevant. Relevancy is very, very important. Change with the time. We have a set pattern of communication, probably much more different. Learn from the latest skills that are there. These are some of the challenges, trained personnel who are already there. So you cannot just go alone. You cannot just fire people, and you have people with you.
Yes.
And you have to journey along with them. They have different wavelengths, and to navigate with technology is easy. To navigate with people and their different wavelengths, that is challenging, and that is where I need God. This is not one person job, because it's not available on a textbook.
Yeah, well, he's clearly with you. If he's brought you to it, like they say, he will qualify you.
So that is the
So-
thing. I find a lots of energy, enthusiasm in these offices. So people want to do good. There are people who are wanting to learn. So these are good phenomena. So, and there's a whole bishop's mandate for you, and the bishops are supporting this activity. So lots of positives. I see it as an opportunity more than the challenge. It's a big opportunity.
Okay.
It's just not for me. For I think the church and Asia as Asia is changing.
True. Now you talked about the office. You've taken on a new role. You've taken on a new team. Normally, one walks into an office, gets to know everyone, gets a feel of the place, gets immersed into the job and the team. You've had to do it all virtually. What's that been like?
It is the learning curve. How to do these things in a sense, as you just said it, you summarize my sentiment rather. To do it virtually, start an office, take up a responsibility, give orders, receive orders, give work assignments, demand work assignments when you don't see them. I'm still navigating that. It's a learning curve, and we are doing it. So far, so good. Goa connectivity has been good, so it's not that pretty good as compared to what I was imagining. So things are moving. May not be as expectantly what we were expecting, but things are working. So it is workable. I enjoy working. So basically, if I'm on the table, I love doing things. So yeah, that's how it is. But it is an experience. I agree there is fatigue of the screen, Zoom fatigue, these type of things exist. But life is also adventurous, because I have lots of things to do. I love reading. I love going outdoor, going off track, exploring new paths. If I go for a walk, I will never walk on the same path again. So I will always find a new route every day. You can imagine how to do that in village.
But those are where some of the most interesting routes are,
Yeah,
particularly
so,
in Goan
yeah,
villages.
Yeah.
Yes.
So there's I more or less I explore. That's an adventure that I bring back to work. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and if you're having to build that rapport without the benefit of a water cooler conversation or a coffee break, more power to you.
No, I have long conversation with the people that I interact with. Sometimes I just like to chat, maybe half an hour, 45 minutes, because I always end my meetings with this. I said we are building relationship. We are not just working here.
True.
So basically, if I'm here, is to build relationship. It's not just because to get work done. They could have hired anybody else to get the work done. If we are building relationship. We share ourselves. We trust one another, and without that element, you can get lots of work done. But if that element does not happen, you have not left a mark on others, and others have not left a mark on you. And if I miss that quotient, I will quit. Yeah, because I learn from others, and others edit me.
Edit you. Okay.
For better,
Yes. You were in North America before this.
Yeah.
How will those experiences help you? Because it's a very different dynamic, Americas to the Asias.
Yeah, 6 years in North America, in US 3 years, and 3 years in Canada. Learned a lot of stuff. The ways of going about, pretty interesting. Yeah, I know there is a clash sometimes when you think like a Westerner and try to be like an Easterner. So these clashes exist. But only thing is, in my scenario, I'm aware that these are clashes. These are my expectations. I am operating like from North American style, work, demand, get back. So the Asian style is a different style altogether. So more and more I'm aware of this conflict, and more I mingle both these elements. I think that is where the success lies. It's not that we have to intersect something somewhere, and that point of intersection is a point of success. They have something very nice we can learn as Asia. Nations have something very nice that each of us can learn from one another, and probably I'm hitting at that intersection.
Okay.
And that intersection will ignite. Yeah.
Now, religion and evangelism are sensitive topics. Broadcasting is an extremely controlled medium in many parts of Asia, while the digital medium is extremely virulent. They are polar opposites in some ways. It can be a blessing or a curse, either way. What kind of challenges and dynamics do you see at play?
So, no, first of all, I don't like this polarity of A or B.
Okay.
There's lots of things apart from that, blessing or curse. There's so much of things, and there is nothing a curse as such. So that's my take.
A boon or a bane.
Yeah, but I don't like that polarity. This
Okay.
or that, this or that. That limits us only for two options.
Okay.
First of all, it makes us very content. But you asked a very important question about religion, evangelization, and how to navigate political scenarios and unrest in many of these countries, civil unrest, military coup in Myanmar, and all this. It was fascinating. First, let's get the first. I always like to define this word. Most of our problems lie because we fail to define the word in its correctness. So evangelization, what does evangelization mean? Evangelization has acquired bias. What does the word mean? The acquired bias is evangelization means converting others. No. That's a bias. That's the biased way of looking at evangelization. What is evangelization? Evangelization is a news story. So basically, you say, oh wow, this is something like that. I like it. Once you like it, you go and tell somebody else. That is evangelization. You discover the person of Jesus. You say, wow, this fellow is interesting. I want to talk about him to others. It's like you meet somebody and you have so much of, you have, wow, and then you keep talking about it.
Yeah.
That is evangelism, the very action that you were fascinated by the person of Jesus here, and you were talking about that person to somebody else with the intention that your life also will be changed like mine. That is evangelization in its true sense. The response of the other person, whether to like the person that I am sharing, that is his.
True.
I am not forcing you. We cannot do anything like that. And obviously, that force is, it's not appropriate in this whole dynamics. It's relationship. At the end of the day, evangelization is a relationship. You had a relationship with Jesus, and that this is the relationship that you want to share because it has changed your life. This is evangelization, and this is what we do. We have been touched. People have been touched. They give their testimony, faith testimony to others. you want to read, you read. If you want to throw it out and have doubts on it, may as well have it. I have to answer it, by the way. So apart from that, religion is a control phenomena.
Yeah.
Religion and radio has always a conflict throughout the history. Religion and radio, these two R's, has always been in conflicted thing. Radio broadcasting has always been restricted in countries, not just in Asia,
Yes.
across the world. So there are certain sensitivities, but as for our mandate, we have a mandate not to air, write political opinions, political ideas, support or thoroughly, but you have to gauge the sentiment of the people. How you balance that, that's the critical element. But in areas that we have conflict, crisis, military rule, strong censorship, we operate strictly religious, strictly devotional, like soothing content that allows people to find an alternative that can keep them going as human beings, can relate to others and not fuel anger and hatred. So this is something like we would not publish something that will fuel anger, bias, like hatred. So we will avoid these type of things. We don't want to create. There is enough problems in the world. We don't want to add to them. So you have to orient yourself towards opportunities for solutions, opportunities how we can dialogue, talk, go together, collaborate, network. This is what we are focusing on, and I hope this is it's not a focus of Radio Veritas itself, it's a focus of the church itself. It has learned from its own mistakes. Mistakes have been committed, but even now it is not we cannot say that things were not happening. Things happened, but the point of learning has always been there. Application of that learning comes slow, but I am sure that one day we will arrive at a point that we can say face to face, across diversities, across ethnicities, that I have something to learn from you and you fascinate me.
I hope so, because Asia does have a lot of unrest and
Yeah.
a lot of the social justice elements border on political. So it's a minefield out there.
Yeah.
Good luck with that. Yeah. Now, you've worn another hat that not many are aware of. You've been a publisher. Tell us more about that.
I love doing things, and I love entertainment. What entertainment? At that point of time when I was doing my thesis for my the masters in public service, people are thinking, why you had to do public service management? So, but it was very interesting job. I was very focused on my thesis, and that point of time I needed some sort of relaxation. So I started to write these stories where priests had told me that this is what they had done or this happened. These are all true stories that I put together. I started to write as pastime to relax when I was focused on doing my thesis and collecting data, doing analysis, running tests. And then this was a pastime. I said, this is an alternative. I said, I have something to do. And I started to put these stories together. And I have put them together into a book titled called Uncommon Priest.
Okay.
These are stories that you would not expect a priest to do.
Okay.
So these are stories. They are stories that mostly people think priest no, look here, he's holy and things. But there is so much of humor.
Okay.
There's so much of humor around priesthood that is often get forgotten. The priests are humorous. Some of them are very humorous.
Yes,
and they give you tit for tat so quickly. One fellow, I remember one of my friend. We were in Chicago, and he said, I have not written the name in the book, but he said he met another parishioner, and he said, "Oh, I have not seen you in the church. Next time when you come to the church, just bring your checkbook." So I found it funny. It was sharp, prompt, on the spot. And they knew him one another, so they could joke around. So these are the type of stories of mischief, and so I think people should read that.
Which gives us an insight into the lives that they lead. Because
Yeah.
you're right. I mean, very often when I found gatherings of priests, there's a lot of humor.
Lots
and
of
wit
humor.
That is.
And that's why I say that these are stories published for the first time. They have gone out from the circles of priests. But interestingly, apart from my thesis, I was responding to American context, and that's why I wrote the book. That's my serious point. More seriously, like, I wrote a book because in the US, when I went, there was so much of publicity against priesthood, anti-Catholic publicity, priests as abusers, priests child abusers, and so I said, okay, this is not the whole story. So people were just looking at you as like a predator, so there are so many other things. There are so many good parts of priesthood, and I said, let's talk about humor. Let's talk about the other sides. So it was an alternative to the most dominant narrative. In a small way, what I could do is to provide an alternative. It was very little, but
But it makes a difference.
Yeah, I said everybody has to make yourself different. A priest is a human person. He has the same feelings and attractions and fascinations and eccentricities that most people have. Some people will be extremely good. Some people will be totally different behaviors. Unlike a priest, some of them will be totally versatile into many things. They will be highly extreme, talented, crazy. So this is a conspectus. This don't get one breed. We have to.
We're human, and that's the charm of humankind.
So I felt that was an attraction, and I still want to write about it. I have more stories on that, but then COVID came up, and I changed my gears, and I started to be fascinated by YouTube. I started a YouTube channel during COVID. I started a website to write blogs. So I just do things. I love it.
So when's the next book out?
Yeah, that is the question now. Yeah, I want to write something. I have some of my writings, but I have not published some.
Okay.
Yeah.
A while.
Yeah.
But we then can expect to see something else.
Yeah, why not?
You haven't retired yet.
I'm retired. I call myself retired.
That's what everybody hopes to do, retire at 40.
Yeah,
You've got more stories to tell, Father.
Yeah, I have. I say I've retired because people are so much busy by chasing their goals, and they forgot that they have time to enjoy. So when you say that you are retired, people immediately say, "Oh, no, you cannot retire." I said, "Look here, I'm retired. I enjoy people, I enjoy work, and that is what I'm doing. And that is what I'm going to do when I retire. Or when you retire, you're going to do what you enjoy. I'm already doing them now. So why wait for a certain age for retirement to start doing what you enjoy? Might as well do them."
True.
That's what I do. That's why when I say retired, these days I'm practicing something to avoid saying the word busy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, people say, "Father, are you busy?" I have to say, "No, I have work." I don't repeat that word busy because one of the sayings that inspired me is a busiest person does not have the time even to say that he is busy. Are you so busy? But saying that you are busy means you are wasting your time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I that statement brings to mind some conversations which I will not repeat here. But another question on the RVA. It's a faith-based organization. Are there roles for lay people who either have journalistic experience or who might be interested in journalism as a career path?
Yeah, RVA is nearly 80% lay people who are working for RVA. Okay. So I would say lots of people who there are potentials, there are opportunity. Yesterday I was talking to a prospective stinger journalist from Timor. Okay. So, and then I have to talk to a person from Indonesia today. So, we are hiring.
Oh, lovely. People out there, they're hiring. Just remember, if somebody wants to, then Father, you need to tell us how to look up some of those opportunities.
Yeah.
But also, how to find some of this content. So, if you can tell us, some of the channels or the links or whatever, and maybe we can put that up as part of this interview as well for people to go and explore more.
Yes. So, how to find content? Type Radio Veritas Asia.
Okay.
You will come to a website of the Radio Veritas Asia. So, and many of these other language services, they have RVA Hmong, RVA Hindi, RVA Tamil, RVA. I'll give you the links for each of them. So each language services have their own links, own website. Apart from that, they have their YouTube, social media handles. So if you follow them, that's how you can access many of these things. Some of them may look like in different languages, different scripts. So, but that is that audience. Like, you go to certain sites and then you will see all Chinese characters. You will see, like, characters of other languages. So you like, there's the version to see something first time like that you're not accustomed to. But there is content that is being done in those languages, and that can be accessed globally. It's not just in that part, because internet is a free world today. In that way, I think the message is being connected not only to the local, but is connected to those of the immigrant population who have moved to out of Asia.
Okay.
So lots of, and especially there are different segments of people that language services cater. So one is like Goa to Goans, right? Then second is Goa to Goans in India,
Outside.
in Asia. But again, another segment is Goa Konkani in other parts of Europe and in North America, and then in other parts of the world. So like that, these language services also connect to different strata of people, and they are the ones who, like, support plug-in, because they don't get Asian stories on an American website.
True.
So you will get Asian stories, correct story from an Asian website. Some of them are doing fantastic job, but they don't have grassroots connect. Sometimes they don't have journalists on the ground. So you have a better understanding if you are reading through a local language, if you are reading a local connect,
News,
you're going to have much holistic view rather than just sitting into a different part of the world and looking at Goa and finding it like, looking at these areas and finding the story.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have any visibility into your plans to leave for Manila, or are you going to be here for a while?
So this visibility is not depending on me. So first,
Okay.
it's depending on the government, because the government has to open the borders both
Yeah.
in India and in Philippines, and
Yes.
it's also depending on the COVID situation.
Yeah.
So the sooner it happens, my bags are packed. Like, I'm a light traveler, so I'll be in Manila, because I'm waiting. I'm looking forward for this, because once you go into the office, if I'm doing 20% work now, I'll be doing a little more than that. Like,
Okay.
so I'm not doing 20%.
Okay, your benchmark's really low if you're saying just a little bit more than that.
Yeah. So I told you, retired, right? So I enjoy doing things like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
What would you like to tell our viewers specifically in Goa and also the Goan diaspora at large? Anything that you'd like to address to them?
Yeah, Goa has always fascinated me. I love Konkani. Konkani म्हाका बरें दिसता. अजूनय हांव उलयता, म्हजी कोंकणी उलयता आसतना लोक म्हणटा, फादर तूं कोंकणी विसरोंक ना मरे. कोंकण्यान कितें करून विसरतलो? So sometimes I mix English and Bangladesh, and because I have lots of and Salsette, I have lots of friends in Salsette. What I want to share with you as fellow Goans and people with Goan Connect and people who love Goa, it's not just people who have high admiration to Goa as a memory, as ideal place to be. Goa is fascinating. Goa is beautiful, and Goa has some of the very positive elements to connect with others. It's an opportunity for us to be Goans. I used to always tell my friends, like, Goa is a card. The moment you play it, you get special attention. So you are having one legacy as a Goan, and that is a very important legacy. Nobody wants to shoo you away because you're a Goan, because people love you and they say, oh yeah, I visited Goa. So this is what is my message to all the audience, that Goa has been good and we can make it much better. And we are making it better by connecting with others, being open to new ideas, and definitely taking Goa to new heights, creating this memory alive for the future and years to come, I think.
Thank you, Father. That's really inspiring.
Yeah.
And thank you for making the time today. I think it's been a really, really nice, enjoyable chat with you. I think so many things have come out of this. The pride of being Goan, the pride of being open to a call, and the confidence that when that call comes, the path will open up. Even if it's one day at a time, it will still open up. All you need to do is be willing to make that journey. So thank you very much for being here, and all the best to you with RV.
Yeah, Thank you very much, Runa. This is a fantastic time that we spent together. I also learned a lot of stuff. You put it together, you just summarized the entire thing. And I want to leave you and the audience and your team with a special blessing.
Yes,
and my
please.
blessing is like, you don't have to.
No, whatever.
My blessing is this, and this is what I experience. This is what I want you to experience. This is what I want everybody to experience, not irrespective of ethnicity. I want everybody to experience this blessing, being content in life. I want everybody to experience the blessing that you are at the right time, at the right place, saying the right thing and doing the right thing. This is an experience. This is the experience what I have. I always feel that I'm at the right place at the right time with the right person and probably saying the right things. And I want this experience to be part of your life, that you also feel that you are content and you are at the right place at the right time doing the right thing. And I think that's the definition of happiness.
That's a wonderful blessing, and if
you.
each of us could have that confidence, I think we'd go a lot further in life.
Yeah.
Each day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Father.
Yeah.
Thank you.